Okay, first things first, get everything set up, put everything spread out on the table, have a little entertaining video on the side, and what I did here is I took out the motherboard from its box, I placed it on its static electricity dissipating or whatever, it's plastic wrap there to stop static electricity from hitting it. I put it on a box so, because there's pins underneath the motherboard. And when you're going to be like putting in the CPU and stuff like that, you don't want it to be on a hard surface. So you put it on the box. It kind of absorbs some of the pressure. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is check your motherboard versus the case's standoff. So here's the case. And what I did is I placed the motherboard inside the case and I aligned it with, so the back here comes out of the back panel. If after checking your motherboard the standoffs, which are these things, aren't in the proper place, you can always take a vice grip and undo them. Like so. Always remember, lefty loosey, righty tighty. So you're going to want to undo it towards the left. Now, once you've undone those standoffs that weren't in the right place, you sort of take your standoffs, place them where you think they should be. Don't really need to tighten them much just yet. We're just checking to see if when you place the motherboard on top. Alright, so I just unboxed the CPU cooler. And for an AMD, it's pretty simple. You just drop it on there and lock it in place. You don't have to install the mounting bracket, which usually comes with the CPU cooler. So I'm just gonna throw that mounting bracket right back in the box, and I'm gonna start by installing the CPU. This is what the CPU looks like. So basically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take out this thing here, or lift it, I should say. And then when that's up, you can now install your CPU. So let me do that. To do that, basically you want to grab your CPU and you take a look at where the arrow is at the top right, so that one. Basically that arrow has to align itself with the little dot that you see right here. So you flip it over and you do this very carefully because you don't want to bend any of the pins on the back of the CPU. So yeah, you just drop it on there. And you kind of want to give it a little wiggle just to make sure it's well socketed in place. No pressure being applied here, just a little wiggle. And lock it back into place like that. Now your CPU is installed. You need to install the CPU fan. Now to do this, what I'm going to do first is kind of get a feel for it. I'm just going to like drop it on there and look at where the electrical wires are coming out from and where they need to go. So I have here 2 electric wires. One of them is to control the power for the CPU fan and the other one is to control the lights. Okay, so you can see here the CPU fan connector is there. And basically what I'm going to want to do is twist my thermal take so that my wires end up next to my my connector. Okay, so next thing you want to do is apply your thermal paste. So I'm going to apply some thermal paste. Which comes with the CPU, by the way. You take your thermal paste and really you only want to apply a thin amount. Right, so I squeezed all the compound I could get out of that little package here. It really wasn't enough. I mean, it wasn't a lot. AMD was kind of stingy, but as you can see, it's actually plenty. All you want really is like a pea-sized amount on your CPU. You apply it right to the middle, And then when you drop your fan on top of it, it should spread evenly. Make sure your fan doesn't have anything underneath it, so prep it. Take off the sticker. I'm going to undo the wire, the wire thing, just so the wire's not in the way while I do this. So there you go. And now you just drop it on. So I'm aligning these hooks with the hooks that are going to be on the board. So you want to align yourself with these hooks here. That's what you're latching onto. It can be a little bit difficult to latch on, but use your strength. Don't be afraid to apply a little force here. One. Make sure things are well fastened, and it should look a little bit like this once you're done. So the next step for me would be, I guess, to well, you can go ahead and plug this CPU fan right away if you want. Get that out of the way. So again, I take the 4-pin CPU fan. In this case, it's a 3-pin, and I'm going to just slot it into the CPU fan connectors right there. I can tell it's a CPU fan connector because, as you can see, it says CPU fan 1 right there. If there's a CPU fan 2, that's where I could connect my the power for the lights controller. But I don't see that yet. So I'm going to guess that this particular motherboard doesn't have a second CPU fan power connector. Maybe pump fan. I'm not sure yet. I'll have to Google that and I'll get back to you guys on this. So the next step for me is the RAM. I want to make sure that the RAM actually fits where I'm pointing, because the CPU fan is kind of big, and I want the RAM to fit perfectly with it. So it's the next thing I'm going to check, make sure it fits. Alright, so let's start unboxing these. Right here I have some Patriot 16 gigabyte sticks times 2. They are not dual channel; they're single channel. But I'll be installing them in the A1 and A2 slot. So here's what they look like. They have a nice heatsink on them. They're beautiful. This is beautiful RAM. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do is take this and install it right on the A1 and B1 slots. Actually, no. Here on my motherboard it says A2, B2 should be the first. It says it right on the motherboard. So I'm going to respect that. You can see that right here. So here, as you can see, if you zoom in, it says DIM A1, DIM A2, DIM B1, DIM B2. So I know that I'm gonna have to slot it in A2 and B2 first. So it's simple. Basically, I'm going to unlock these levers here just by pushing on them like that. Actually, only one side unlocks on this model. It's normal. Next, you're going to align the hole on the bottom here with the hole with the notch that's inside that slot there. So just going to align that right there. Okay, it aligns. Now I can actually apply pressure and stick it in. Simple as that. When the notch here, when this thing goes all the way up, you know that it's fully been locked in place. So here's an example of a motherboard module, a RAM module that was not correctly installed. You want to make sure you apply enough pressure, see, for that thing to snap back into place with just the force you're using. It should do it automatically. You shouldn't have to snap it back in place. So that's one module done. We're going to do the same for the other one. I actually noticed my first mistake here. Yes, mistakes do happen, even for professionals. So here is the M2 slot place, the M2 slot. You're going to have to remove these two screws to access the M2. So yeah, we went with an M2, not an SSD or an HDD. So I would have wanted to do this before installing the CPU, because as you can see, the CPU fan sort of covers my M2. So make sure you guys plan this accordingly. Probably best to do the M2 first. So I'm going to unscrew this and see if I can get it out without having to pop off the fan. Wish me luck. So to do this, basically you want to make sure there's no static electricity before touching your motherboard with anything. The best way to do that is to touch something that's grounded. So I know my stove is grounded and I know my fridge is grounded. So touching these things will remove any static electricity from me, and it's going to give it to the ground. So basically now I know that I can touch my motherboard and I'm grounded. I'm not going to short circuit it with any static electricity built up on me. So here I go. This is not the right screw. I'll be right back. Okay, so I just removed the M2 cover, which looks like this. And here's what it looks like underneath. So one thing I would like to mention here is that there are two screws here, and there should only be one screw to hold down your M2. I'm guessing it's because there's maybe different M2 sizes or whatever. But all I know is that we're going to remove this one here because I don't want it to short the backside of my M2. It might be resting right on there. I don't want that. So I just removed it. And so here's the slot that you're going to insert it in, and it should be resting at a 30-degree angle. It should not be on this screw here. It should just be like kind of like flopped up in the air. So I'll show you what that looks like now. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is install the M2 into the slot. The screws here are, I think they're more of a hazard than anything, so I removed them. So yeah, here we go. Put the M2 in, snaps in, and then I'm going to get the cover. The cover comes with a little bit of plastic. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to remove the plastic cover on there. And just rest my M2 in position, my M2 cover. So it kind of looks like this. Put the screw in place. Take my trusty screwdriver and fix it in. Don't need to apply too much force. Just get it screwed in. That's it. One thing I noticed with this build was that the battery enclosure is fully covering the bottom part. So you need to get access to it from the other side of the case. So flip it over and start removing these screws to gain access to behind the panel. What was cool is tucked in here, I also saw they had some extra motherboard standoff screws. So that's always good. If ever you need extra, you can take them out and install them. Thing I would like to stress is while you're working, try to keep your work area clean and free as possible of anything that can snag. So yeah, go ahead and do that. Before installing the battery, we're going to just clean up our setup here on our motherboard. So right now, as you can tell, here, pan this down a bit. The motherboard fan is installed. The CPU fan, I should say. The CPU fan is plugged in. And what I'm going to do is take a some sort of tie wrap. Where's my tie wrap here? Whoa, there it is. Take your tie wrap and kind of you want to fasten down all your wires here. Make it look nice and neat. Helps to have dainty fingers, which I do not have. Yeah. Basically, this will help increase your airflow on your computer. You want to keep all your wires nice and neat and tight and tucked in. So that's what I did. And there you have it. Looks a bit like this now. Okay, now once that's done, we're going to make sure that it sits properly in the case. So I'm going to take my case, flip it over, and I have these extra motherboard standoffs which came with the case. And what we're going to do is just install the rest of the standoffs that are required here. So I think I'm going to need at least 2 more. Let's see here. So first things first, take the CPU, the motherboard, and make sure the standoffs align on the case. Fill it in my case here, Tuck away the wires I don't need for now. Take the motherboard, slap it in where it's supposed to go, and notice which holes don't have standoffs in them. So I can see here there's 2 holes missing. There's 2 holes missing standoffs. There's one missing here, and there's another one missing up there. So I'm going to take note of where those are about, and install 2 other standoffs for those. Now once you have your standoffs in position, your newly installed ones, you want to just triple check, make sure your motherboard fits right on top of them, sits right on top of them, I should say. And yeah, I can see one standoff right there and another one right there. So I know everything is well aligned and good to go. Next thing I'm going to do is put the I/O shield in place. Here's our I/O shield, and you just want to pop it in that little slot down there. Let's get that done. You want to make sure these audio holes are on the bottom of the case. Also, you want to push in the. See here, I have a fan wire that connects to this fan here, so you want to make sure that's inside the case. So basically, you just align your I/O shield with the slot, with the thing, and you should just be able to pop it in. It should make a sound when you pop it in, like pop. Once that's in place, it's got to have a nice loud popping sound on it. That's how you know it's in place. You push on it and it's not coming out, not too much. And there you go. The I/O shield. Alright, so the I/O shield is installed. Now I'm just going to install the motherboard itself. To do that, you make sure that you have it in a way where the I/O ports are on the side, ready to be basically just stuck into the I/O shield, like that. Should just rest in the I/O shield. You might have to push a little bit just to get it to seat in there properly. Boom. You should take a look and make sure that everything is aligned properly. So you don't have any funny surprises afterwards. I noticed that there is a lot of like protruding things here, and I just want to make sure it all fits underneath it, and nothing is blocking my I/O ports from being accessed. So yeah, all my I/O ports are good. Everything is aligned on the standoffs. And we're good to go. So with that, you've got to find the screws that come with your motherboard. These little screws here are perfect for the standoffs. Oops. I don't know if you can see it, but basically you're going to want to screw them into your standoffs. So let me get that done and show you what it looks like. Now when you're screwing these in, you want to make sure they're not screwed in too tight. You don't want to strip these if ever you want to like remove them again, or you don't want them to be like locked into the standoff that's underneath it. You just want to kind of like give it a little screw, and after you can go about tightening it. I'll show you how that looks like. So first I screw it in lightly, just to make sure it's seated in the in the correct position. And I'm going to try to do it in a sort of like a star formation. Do one side, do the other side, do another angle and another angle, just to try to like tighten all of the corners uniformly. You don't want to just tighten one end and then move your way in. You want to kind of like tighten everything at the same time. Alright, now that all my screws are seated properly, what I'm going to do now is give them a little bit of a tightening. Basically, I'm not going to force more than, well, right now they're in their socket. I'm just going to twist until I feel a little resistance. I don't want to twist it hard. I don't want it to really be screwed in there. I just want it to hold and be solid, but not force it in there. Finally finished with the build. What you see here is the graphic card. All the power connectors are put in place. All the jumper cables are in place. The USB cables, the front panel connectors, the audio connector for the front panel. So everything's good to go. The cable management is left to be desired. There's still a little bit of placing to do, but I like to do that when I'm sure that everything works. So what I did here is plug it to a power source, and I'm about to boot it on for the first time. See what it looks like. Alright, so we can see that all the fans are spinning. It's a good sign. The CPU fan is on, everything turns on. Let's see, the graphic card is also spinning. The fans are also spinning, so everything's powered up and good. Now it's just a matter of installing the OS. So let's get that done. So I just turned on the computer, I booted it, and I'm using a Raspberry Pi screen to do my checks. I noticed that it boots into BIOS, which is a good sign. We have here all our specs are up, so everything's being detected, which is good. Now the next step is to install Windows. Let's get it done. So what I have here is a USB drive, which contains the installation media for Windows. And what I'm going to do here is test my USB front panel port. It would be easier to test it in the back here because these ports are directly connected to the motherboard, so I know they work. But I should test this one before handing it out to the client. The front panel, make sure it works. USB is in, and it lights up. That's a good sign. Let's see if it's detected by the OS now. I mean the BIOS. So under BIOS, you're going to want to go into your boot sequence. Let's see the advanced. I'm gonna need a mouse and keyboard. I'll be right back. Alright, so after putting on my Windows USB into my front panel and restarting the PC, I didn't need to change anything in BIOS. It automatically detected the Windows setup media, and it's good to go. So I'm just gonna set this up, close it up, finish a bit the wiring. Make sure it looks good, and I'll show you what it looks like as a final product.